Have you ever been completely tripped up by English grammar? Yeah, you're not alone. Well, you're in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to tackle 9 of the most common and, let's be honest, most confusing words in the entire language, the modal verbs. You know, this quote might not make a ton of sense grammatically, but it totally captures the feeling, right? Modal verbs can seriously feel like a source of anxiety. But hey, don't worry. By the end of this, I promise you're going to feel so much more in control. So here they are, the 9 troublemakers: can, could, may, might, all the way to would. That's it, just 9 of them. We're going to break them down, sort them out, and make them feel way, way simpler. So how are we going to do that? Here's our game plan. First, we'll start with some super simple ground rules that make everything else easier. Then, and this is the real trick, we're going to group these verbs by their job. You know, what they do. Are they talking about possibility? Giving advice? Making an offer? It's a clear path from feeling confused to feeling confident. Okay, first up, the ground rules. And I'm not kidding, this is probably the best news you're going to hear about English grammar all day. This whole section is designed to be a massive confidence booster. So here it is, the single most important rule. Get this. Modal verbs have only one form. That's it. No ing, no ed for the past tense, no little s for he, she, or it. In English, that is incredibly rare, and it makes our lives so much easier. And here's what that looks like in the real world. You'd never say coulding. It's always just could. Never musted, always must. And definitely not shoulds, it's always should. Just one form. That's the magic key right there. Okay, just a couple other quick rules to lock in. Modals are always followed by the basic, simple form of a verb, like bake or go. You never, ever put to after them. And making questions and negatives is super easy. For a question, you just flip the words, like can I? For a negative, you just add not, like should not. Easy. All right. With those rules in our back pocket, let's dive into our first group. This whole category is about expressing possibility and certainty. Basically, how sure are you about something? We're talking about a scale that goes all the way from a wild guess to a 100% guarantee. Let's start with can. We use this one to talk about things that are generally possible, things we all kind of know can happen. It's not about something happening right now, it's just a known fact about the world. So, yeah, it can be cold in the UK in March. It's not a surprise when it happens. Of course, the most common way you'll see can and could is for talking about ability. It's really straightforward. Can is for right now. I can speak Spanish. Could is for the past. I could see perfectly back then. Present versus past. Simple as that. So what happens when you're not sure? You know, when you're just making a guess. Well, you've got 3 fantastic options here. Could is for when you have a pretty decent guess. Might is when you're really not sure, but hey, it's possible. And may pretty much does the same job as might. It just sounds a little more formal. Okay, but what if you are sure? When you're making a logical deduction, these 2 are your power words. If you're almost certain something is true, you use must. The boss must be annoyed. And if you're sure something is not true, you use can't. Now, this is important. The opposite of must in this case isn't must not, it's can't. So let's pull all that together on this handy little certainty scale. See, at the very top, when you are positive something is true, you've got must. Right there in the middle, for all those 50-50 guesses, you've got may, might, and could. For just general possibilities, there's can. And all the way at the bottom, when you're totally sure something is not true, you use can't. All right, next up, let's look at how we use modals to influence people's actions. This group is all about obligation, advice, and suggestions. We're talking about the language of rules, recommendations, and telling right from wrong. This is a big one, must versus should. Must is for a strong obligation, a necessity. It can be an internal feeling, I really must call my dad, or it can be an official rule you have to follow. Should is much softer. It's for good ideas, friendly advice, or for talking about what you expect to happen. But listen, must isn't always so serious and bossy. You can also use it to give a really, really strong and enthusiastic recommendation. When a friend says, you must try this popcorn, they're not giving you an order. They're just sharing how incredibly excited they are about it. It's a really common and fun way to use the word. All right, let's talk about shall. This one can seem a little tricky, but the rule is actually pretty simple. It's mostly used in British English, and it almost always comes with I or we. We use it to make a polite suggestion or an offer. So, shall we go is just a classic, slightly formal way of asking, hey, do you want to go? Okay, we're on the home stretch, our final section. Here, we're looking at the more social side of modals, how we use them to make offers and promises, and, my favorite part, how we use them to talk about imagined hypothetical situations. This is where the language gets really creative. First up is will. The best way to think about will is as the verb of intention. You use it to make a solid promise, like, I won't be late. You use it for offers, for predictions, and for making direct requests. It's all about stating a firm belief about what is going to happen. And then we have its cousin, would. Think of would as the softer, more polite, more indirect version of will. It's fantastic for making polite requests, for giving advice, and here's its superpower, for talking about things that aren't real, things that we are just imagining. And here's the perfect everyday example of that difference in politeness. Will you pass me the map? That's fine. It works. It's a direct request. But would you pass me the map? See how that just sounds a little softer, a little more polite, a little less demanding? And this is where would really shines, in creating a hypothetical situation. We are not lost, but just imagine if we were. What would you do? This use of would opens up this whole world of possibilities, of daydreams, and of all those what-if scenarios. So, what's the real key to all of this? It's not about trying to memorize 9 different words with a million different meanings. Forget that. Instead, think about the job they're doing. Ask yourself, am I trying to show possibility? Am I talking about an obligation? Am I making an offer? When you start grouping them by their function, they suddenly click into place. And that's really it. We've walked through the simple rules and the main jobs of these 9 words, from can all the way to would. So I'll leave you with this little thought. Now that you know the system, what would you do if you could truly master these verbs? What new conversations could you have? What new ideas would you be able to share? The possibility is all yours.